today I'm going to be trying something new for myself. I've haven't been doing opening videos like that with my group, but today is pretty much what I feel like doing. I feel like doing openings. I talked to them a little bit, and what they have decided was that they wanted to that yeah, basically decided that's what they wanted. They wanted to see videos on openings. So that's pretty much what I'm gonna get started really soon. Give me 1 second here. I gotta look for my All right, so to explain a little bit about what I'm going to be starting off, it's going to be the Queen's Gambit Declined. That's pretty much what I'm going to be getting started with. This is taking me a little bit longer because I was trying to go to my channel and share, and it's not working for some reason. So there, I found it. Yeah, sorry about that. I had it all figured out to have like a little talk before I started, enough time to share it, and then I couldn't find it while I was talking. So I apologize for that. I was trying to manage my time a tiny bit better than normal. So, all right. All right, so pretty much I'm gonna get started on the Queen's Gambit Decline. There is 31 different segments to not the Queen's Gambit Decline, but the the videos, because it's gonna be like one Queen Gambit Decline is gonna be one video, and then the next video is going to be Slav and semi-Slav, then the Queen Gambit Accepted. So there's like a whole list of stuff. So it's gonna be 31 different videos on pretty much on basically what you pretty much need to know overall. So the Queen Decline starts with D4, D5, C4, and the declined version is with E6. That's the declined version. It didn't become popular until around the 19th century. I think it was like 1920s, I believe. 1927 was a world championship match between Alpine and Capablanca, when it kind of pretty much the first time I think it was played in the world championship. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's when it was. Now from here, white has two possible moves if you plan on using this as white. Give me 1 second here. Trying to look for my live chat. I apologize. All right. I really can't find it, which is really weird. I want to make sure that the people, my students that are in my class, actually, I can see if they're trying to talk to me. Okay, there it is. I have my live chat open now. All right, hello. All right, so here is Petrie. Here is the basics of it. Here you can either play knight to c3 or knight to f3. Knight to c3 is pretty much, I think, more of a main move. I believe, I'm 100% sure. Knight to c3. Yeah, it is. All right, and knight to f3 kind of puts it closer to like the Catalan opening, which it can change to that, to f6, and let's say g3, for example, if that's something that you are interested in. That's more like Catalan, which is really what we're covering the Queen's Gambit, but it actually transposes to that from there. If you play, let's say, knight to c3 instead, usually, for the most part, black, if they know the opening, will play c5. That would be the most normal move after that. It's called a Tarrasch defense. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. Tarrasch. Another idea black has here, black can also play c6. Yes, also very possible. And it's more, it actually doesn't look very aggressive, but it actually kind of is. You also have a really nice pawn structure here for black. So if you're black and someone's playing the Queen's Gambit, and you kind of want to have a pretty good structure, I think this would be it. Because I mean, if he takes, you can just take back and have this right here, half open file for both of you, and you kind of have your pawns pointing this direction. So it's kind of, I kind of like it a little bit. There's also, let me see here. Black also has a few other moves. Let's say knight to f6. And he also has bishop to e7. Like these are all book moves, which is really weird. There's like so much different variations. So that's why it's hard to learn openings and study them, is because there's so many options and possibilities. It's like it's hard to really learn them that way. You'd have to actually learn like why you're doing them, which is why it's important to learn chess principles first, especially chess opening principles, before you learn book moves. But the group wanted to learn some openings, so I'm going to go over a lot of different things and ideas and the basics of pretty much. And the bishop e4 is also another one, and it has been played on and off since like the 1990s, I believe. So these are different things. All right, so let's get into the Teriak's defense, which was I believe after knight to c3, 5. Yeah. Oh, it says right here. So I was trying to spell it for you. All right. It was considered like the only correct move, like from like the 1862 to 1934. Oh yeah, I'm going off a book, FCO, Fundamental Chess Openings, by the way. So I'm kind of trying to read a tiny bit of it as I go through it with you guys. So like by the time I finish all 31 segments of this, you should have the whole entire book. So that's pretty much, I'm doing the different segments. But I'm not like, I'm not reading everything that it says because this is too much. All right. I will definitely get into the important parts of it though. And it will give black, like, let's say, for example, if you capture here and black captures back here, it actually opens up the board like a lot. And basically, if you capture back, it gives an isolated d pawn, for black. And let me see something. Yeah. C takes d5. E takes d5. And knight to f3. Knight to c6. And g3. This is pretty much one of the older lines for this opening. And I mean, obviously, if they capture here, you can just take it back off your knight. It's perfectly fine. And if they want to trade off pieces, that's fine too. It actually probably be good for white if black tried to do that. And the reason why is because your bishop's going to be being kettled, and you're going to be having this right here. So like if everything opens up in the center even more so, that will allow the bishop to be targeting this pawn. The knight will be targeting the pawn. And if everything in the center would be the queen targeting the pawn. So I'm pretty sure black wouldn't be able to handle that very well, especially if he decides just to take. So to be honest, like for a beginner, I think it might be pretty good to, if you're playing the Queen's Gambit, if you're playing the D4 openings, to learn this, because it would be very easy for you to win a pawn. Like, for example, if he takes and you take, now black is going to have to defend this. Let's say black defends it, and let's say you attack again. It's like black's going to have to defend it again. It's going to be really weird, Like, it's possible to defend, but like you're constantly piling up, and it becomes very difficult. So if you're playing, for example, the D4 opening, and your opponent plays the Tarot for any reason, I'm pretty sure that, like, yeah, the reason why you're not capturing everything is because you don't have to. And if he captures, it puts him in a spot where he has to forcefully defend his pawn that's isolated. So and here normally sometimes people have played here e3, I guess, but it's not really that popular or that great. This right here actually fiancos the bishop. The bishop is better off in the square than it is anywhere here. So it's probably better off just to play g3 instead. This right here is, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm wondering if they should actually play c4 at some point, but I'm not entirely sure if that's actually a good idea. They actually can just play c4 now, which obviously would, be a lot better than opening the whole entire thing up for the bishop. But that's a different variation. That's the Swedish variation. Knight to f6 is more mainline-ish. Let's see something here. There's an example here. After f6, let me see something here. Yeah. Here's an example here for one of the move orders. It wasn't knight to f3. It was, I'm a little confused here because the diagram and, oh, I see what they're doing. Okay, so basically, if they play c4 here, for example, this is an example that they have where the bishop comes out and attacks and pins the knight because you move the pawn out of the way. And then if you castle to remove the pin, knight g to e7, and then you're basically ready to castle. And also, you're pretty much ready to castle. And white is able to play e4 here because you can win the pawn back. Because, so you're fine here. All right. That's a little, they just put a little example of this right here. But after knight to f6, for example, bishop g2, bishop e7, castles, and castles. And this is pretty much like the main thing of opening. And that's pretty much a pretty normal setup for it. There's been a lot of other moves that were possible. I believe bishop e3 is an example of something that people have played before, but I'm not entirely sure how all that works out. All right, so I want to go back to the beginning. This is one example. This is a tirage. Now, note boom variation is something different. So we're going to go over a little bit of variations because you're not going to play no one's going to play exactly the same way that you want them to, So like obviously, like if you learn this and you like it, your opponent might not play c5. He might not. Like your opponent can play c6, which is something that I explained earlier, which isn't that bad at all. And after here, you kind of almost the same thing with the knights. Both your knights here, the pawn most likely usually goes up. Sometimes in this variation, I think it's e3 because I think it's e3 here. Let me make sure. Okay, they're explaining f3 is one possibility, e3 is one. So we'll get into each one separately. Knight takes here. Pawn takes here. There's also e4, which is a little weird, but if he captures this way, you can take it. If he captures this way, you can take it. So it's not really that big of a deal. Like, for example, if he takes, and I'll say he calls check, you literally can just retreat back. You don't even have to even worry about it, And even if he takes it and you take back, what ends up happening is that you have 3 pawns in the center, and they kind of help each other out. They kind of protect each other, so it's not like a really bad isolated pawns. It's not really like it's not like hey, this is an island, but these are not. It's a double pawn, but they're protecting each other, so it's not that bad, All right, so that's one thing here. And after e4, I'm not sure which one they're going off of because there's another example. I think after knight f3, d takes c4. I think that's the one they're showing. Yes, it is. All right, it looks like they have a free pawn here if you play this variation instead. But after e3, is actually pretty fine. Black can try to hold on to the pawn with b5. You can attack the pawn that they're trying to use to defend it. This is to complicate things. So if you're black, this is actually probably something you probably want to learn to do. It looks like it's going to complicate things a bit. So bishop to d2. And you're actually able to win the pawn back. I think you're able to win the pawn back here. Bishop to b7. Let me see something. Takes. Yeah, if he takes back here, you can just take the pawn back, which you win it. So he'll take this way instead. And to try to keep the pawn. But after here, you have b3. I mean, if he takes it, you can call it check and then take the pawn back. So you win both pawns. So for that reason, he's not going to be taking this here. He'll be playing a5. Yeah, these openings go pretty long. This is like move 10 already. And he has connected pass pawns. He has 2 connected pawns on the queen side. So that's like pretty good for him. But I think, yeah, but it doesn't matter because he can actually win the pawn back here. It literally takes 12 moves to win the pawn back. So it looks like you're losing the pawn, but you're not. Like, people have really extensively learned, like, you know. So after capturing this, people don't normally take back. They just play b4. And that's pretty much, you know, you have to move your bishop, and then that's pretty much over for the opening. That's actually a lot. I know. This is why openings, like I said, this is why I normally don't do openings, because there's a lot to them. Knight to f6 or bishop to e7. Knight to f6 is also another possibility. We already went over the capture here. So now we got to go over knight to f6, and we'll go over bishop e7 for variations. Let's see here, knight to f6. It's like the main line. Back of the 19th century. The current one, I think, and the more subtle one, I think, is bishop e7 instead. But after knight to f6, bishop g5 is pretty much the normal standard move here. There's different possibilities for black here. There's the Dutch gambit, which is c5. C takes d5. C takes d4. Well, this is a Dutch gambit. Here it says Queen's Gambit, decline, semi-Tarrasch. So the book has a little bit different vocabulary for what the opening is called. So that's a lot. Let me see here. In the fourth move, knight b to d7. Oops. Wait. Bishop g5. Knight b to d7. Okay, that's what it was. I was a little confused. I'm like, wait a second here. Did I mess up the opening? All right, e3. C6. Knight to f3. Queen a5. These are all part of a different Cambrian Spring variation. And that's another one that's possible to play out if this is something that you would be interested in. I kind of like it a little bit. You have like 3 pieces out. Black has 3 as well, but one of them is the queen. Usually at some point you can probably mess around with the queen a bit at some point. Probably not immediately. I would be concerned about something like this, so I'd probably play e3 myself. But let me see something. Okay, that is played a bit. I was a little confused. All right, good. All right. So that's like another variation is possible. Let me go back to move number 5. Bishop to g5. There's a lot of different sidelines here after bishop to g5. There's like a lot. I went over 2 of them already. Let's say bishop to e7 here. And try to find another one. Let's say solid normal natural move. e3. Castles. Knight to f3. This is pretty much a starting position of like a lot of different variations. The main line, I believe, is might be 7. There's also h6. After h6, bishop h4. Knight to e4, which I think looks really weird. Another option besides here is b6, getting ready to fianchetto. I guess the point of the e4 one might be to exchange bishops at some point. You probably do it now. Yeah, it's probably the most simplest. So basically the point of coming here is to unpin the knight and get some exchanges out, and then maybe come out into the opening. And all right, just trying to look at it a little bit. I don't really play d4 openings, but definitely I'm a little curious now. Number 6 might be d7. Most common reply here is rook to c1. c6 is possible here. And here they have a really weird move. I don't like it that much. Knight to d5. I don't understand why they would have that here. Capablanca variation, it says on here. Unless, yeah, I don't know. It looks a little weird. Unless the knight was already here, I might. That's the one I'm not. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not gonna go over it because there's so much stuff here. All right. So the next part would be knight to f3. That was knight to c3. Go over knight to f3, which is more common. This is more common for white. So if you're black and you're playing this, you're more likely to see knight to f3, not knight to c3. Well, went over knight to c3 first. I guess it's very close to the Nismo Indian, I guess. d4, knight f6, c4, e6. Yeah. All right. Knight to f6. I'm a little confused. It's knight to f3. I thought knight to f3 was already played. Oh, okay. I apologize. They want knight to f3, knight to c3, and then f3 here. So it's still knight to. Okay. Bishop e7. We really went over one line over this, but I guess they're continuing with this. I thought they switched back, so I apologize for that. And over here, instead of bishop to g5, you can play bishop to f4 instead on this diagonal. It's a little less aggressive, but it has a pretty good. I think it has a pretty good advantage and actually allows. And also, it doesn't encourage a move like this because the purpose of going here was to attack the bishop. Now, if he goes here, there is no attack against the bishop. So it doesn't really, I mean, he still can, but it's not the same effect. Normal moves are knight b d7 here, c6, and b6. These are the normal moves here. This is the beginning part of the three knights Hardswood attack. That's like a little interesting name. I like it. You have a lot of things to centralize. Centralization, development are very important in the opening. So I like it for those purposes. A different move here would be knight b to d7. There's another normal move here. And after that, it doesn't have a name to it yet. It's not sufficient enough, I guess. Apparently, it doesn't have like its own special name, it says on here. But here it says Three Knights Barman variation. So maybe after the book was written, maybe it did have eventually get a name. Bishop f4 here. Black has d takes c4. And now the bishop, it says awkwardly placed now. I don't really understand why it is. e4. Oh, that's okay. That could be why. The bishop's out of the Yeah, you probably have to just move your bishop back and then just to be attacked. Yeah, I can see why it's a little awkwardly placed after that. So pretty much in this variation, you don't want to play f4 because he can take. And if you do normal move development, he attacks your knight, it becomes a little weird. You pretty much lose. It looks like you lose a pawn for free, to be honest. Bishop g5. If he goes to e7, it'll be main line. He'll be going back into the main line. So that's quite interesting. And it's a semi-Tarrasch. We went over the original one, the regular Tarrasch, whatever it's called. This is a semi one. So it looks very similar to the last one. It's normal to take here. C takes d5. Knight takes d5 instead of e, which is a little different. And it's very common with the Grenfell defense. I don't know if you ever use that, but if you do, it says here it's pretty common with that. And it's pretty much an aggressive opening, which a lot of people may not be comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with that, you can always play e3 here or g3. Both have been shown to be pretty good proper variations. But for the aggressive one, for e4, I like aggressive moves. Knight takes, c takes, and you have a good pawn center here. After knight checks, knight to d2. After bishop checks, bishop to d2. Bishop takes, queen takes. And it kind of trades off everything here. Is actually one of the variations, is exchange variation. And I don't really know. If you look at here at the percentages, which I should have been doing this whole entire time, but this has a high draw percentage for master games. So it's like you have a 34% win chance, 70% loss chance if you're white. So I guess the odds are a little better for white here, but you have almost a 50% chance of drawing the game, and twice as much chance of winning than you do losing. So it looks. I highly doubt black will get into this if you're actually learning to try to be master at some point, because if the odds are that low, I don't see anyone really playing it, to be honest. You know? Bishop c4. This is knight to c6. Castles. b6. And he'd be planning on playing here. So yeah, the stats are all over the place, but it's mostly white and gray. So it's definitely good for white. So if you want to learn that, that'd be pretty good for you. Let's go back. Okay, and instead of c4, c5, which is very common, there's also bishop e4 here. It is called the Reg-Sanagan variation. Okay, it has it up here. I like when the book and the thing here has the same exact name. Sometimes they've been a little different. It says it's a near relative of the Nismo Indian. So if you've learned the Nismo Indian, this would probably be similar to it. I guess E3 would be the Nismo Indian defense. Yeah. So it's like really close to Nismo Indian. But in here, this is not the Nismo Indian. This is obviously the Rezanagan. So it's kind of close. C takes, E takes, and bishop to G5. So this is an option instead of playing Nismo Indian. So like if someone, let's say for example, black prepares the Nismo Indian defense. Let's say you know that this is Nismo Indian and just something black normally plays for. You can just instead capture and play this different sideline that is might actually surprise your opponent a little bit, and something they're probably not really prepared for, but it's kind of close. And you kind of have open files here instead of playing closed off a bit. It's a little more open immediately. I mean, I'm pretty sure it opens as well, but it's a little more immediate. That's the main line, and so is h6. These two are main line moves. All right. That's some ideas. So if you want to play open position, this would be a little better off. Knight to f6. Go back. And instead of the bishop move, there's also the obvious capture. It was barely ever played before the 1990s. He could win the pawn back easily with e3 or queen check. If you do a queen check, you can just pick up the pawn back. e3 attacks the pawn this way. Let's go to e3 first. c5. Now, what would happen if he tries to... Oh, he can't protect it because the knight can just capture. Okay, that makes sense because if he goes here, which there's no games in that, he can just capture. So that's why he's not defending. He's just playing here. Bishop takes c4. This is a queen gambit accepted classical defense. So basically, after all this stuff, you got into accepted, even though we're learning decline variations. This actually becomes an accepted variation after 5 moves. Another option, the other capture instead of e3 was queen to a5. I mean a4 check. And after c6, queen capture, attacking the queen. It's close to the semi-flop, this one right here. So yeah, a lot of these lines are like really close to each other and very similar, which is really a little weird. I normally play e5 moves, and I don't see a lot of moves. I see some going to each other, but this is a lot more than I've noticed in the other stuff. So after d takes c4, oops. You also had the option of e4, bishop here, bishop, and c5. This is also another opening line, which looks a little weird. The Vienna variation. Actually, it does look like the Vienna opening. Now that I mentioned that. Yeah, I played the Vienna before, and this setup looks very similar. That was played more popular in the 1930s. If you look at the games here, it's still a little drawish, but the black and white gap is a bit closer than the other one. So it's a bit more drawish, not as much winning chances as other lines for white. E4, E5, number 7. I want to make sure I'm in the right move order. I believe this is E5. Yeah, 7 E5. And it was met in the 1930s. The first time pretty much this was being played. This part right here. And C takes D4. Check. Obviously blocking the check and defending the bishop, so he can't take it. Queenside castling, which looks really weird, but if he can't take, because the queen, bishop to d7, knight to e4, getting that out the way. This looks really complicated. Oh, I messed up the move order. This was the move. That's why it looked a little weird. And then bishop to e7. Okay. This is a highly complicated position, which I really don't understand this at all. I most of the stuff I kind of have a good general idea, but this I don't really understand the point of it. You have like 4 pieces versus 3, but black has all these pawns in the center and white does not. So it's basically a trade off of piece development versus pawn structure. I don't see black castling anytime soon. Either way, probably not at all, to be honest. This looks like a nice fortress, though. I kind of like it a little bit. But it was really complicated, and it was basically started off in the 1930s. I can definitely see what the amusement of it, though. Without computers, you'd have to work out all this stuff, and it's probably like a dream for someone who loves to figure things out. But with computers, you probably can easily put an engine in and figure out what is the best ideas and moves. So I could definitely see why that was appealing, for sure. You can still play it yourself if you ever get into that situation because it does look really nice. I highly doubt anyone today really looked into it very much. The exchange variation, we kind of went over that already a little bit. There's going back and forth, which is fine. I don't mind that much. Also possible to obviously capture of the knight, but right now they're talking about capture of the pawn. Bishop to g5 again. Now, if you look at this and watch it all the way to the point, you will realize that there's a lot of common patterns. And one of the common patterns in a d4 and c4 is that the knight goes on c3. I've never seen a knight on d2. That's one common pattern. Another common pattern I've noticed is the bishop. It's usually on g5. And that's another common pattern. And after the knight goes here, both of these have been playable. So it's like there's like really common patterns with like lots of different things. You obviously have a check here that white almost never does, but is available to him if he needs it. And the idea of so it's actually quite interesting that like a lot of these go back to like the same thing over and over again. And when you look at openings, you want to learn the patterns because if you don't remember the exact move order of things, at least you know where the pieces usually sit. And then if it's a mistake or inaccuracy or even a blunder, you can be okay. In this specific situation, it's not okay. It's normally okay. Why is it not okay here? Like that's something I encourage you to do when you look at your openings and you're trying to figure stuff out. Because if you're like, this is wrong, and you don't know why, you're going to throw everything away. So you might as well learn it. And when something goes off, you can be like, okay, this is normally correct, but just not here. So you can still play it and just try to learn why it was wrong at that moment. And that's like super important for that. And instead of C6, this is what they're going over. This is also a possibility, but they're not going over that one. They're going over C6. And after C6, apparently the normal move is queen to C2. Yeah, I was hit the book by accident. Hopefully I'm too loud. Queen to C2. It prevents bishop to F5. Apparently bishop F5 was a good idea for black. So queen to C2 was specifically just to prevent this. I can see why though. Bishop F5. I mean, if you can bring stuff in, I can see why that may be dangerous. This was discouraged a long time ago. This is what used to be played. Queen of B3, queen of B6 also was possible, apparently, to attack the B6. This was also played in the past. That was interesting. I like that one better. Yeah, apparently this was discouraged for some reason. It said it was quite playable for black, even though it looks odd. I don't like it. I mean, if you look at the master games, obviously it's not very playable. So the book says it's playable for black. So basically, they play queen to c2 is the move they recommend, according to prevent bishop c5. But going over this, bishop g6 mostly played. Going over this, it looks like I would prefer e3, even though it was discouraged. Just by looking at the master games here. I have it set for master games for a reason. All right. So I haven't I've gone over this book with openings that I like. I have not gone over his openings with master games on chess.com. I am now, and I'm actually thinking that I should do this with myself, for myself. I'm doing it for you guys. You guys asked me to, and I'm very happy now that I am, because at first it seemed a little bit repetitive, a little bit confusing to me, but I definitely do see some merit in learning. So basically, yeah, I would do e3 here instead, but we have to go over. I'm going over the book stuff, so let's go ahead. These are mainline stuff. And castles. This is another line. It says it had been mainline for ages, but an important alternative have briefly come to fore with the knight to h5 on move 8. It said it's probably not as good, but people have been playing this as well. Black deflates the tension on the king side even before white has shown any signs of aggression. After bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, and knight g to e2, g6, intending knight to g7, which is an odd idea, but I've seen it before. And also, okay. Yeah. So basically intending to move here, here, and here. Like to try to trade off. So pretty much you're trying to stop the attack with the queen and bishop. That was the whole point of doing all this. There's not much theory in this. There's a lot more theory in the main line, which is the after here is the castling. There's not much theory in this right here. So basically it's not as studied. This is more of more lines have been studied this way. So if you're black and you want to stop the attack and you don't want to just castle, you can actually just go here. And after the exchanges, and he tries to develop a little bit, you can do this. So later to play knight here, bishop here, to hit the powerhouse right there, the battery. But main line is castles. And after castles, usually it's knight to f3, rook to e8, and castles. This is the main line right here for this variation. Rook a to b1. I guess to eventually push these pawns up. And basically white aims to put a weakness on king side. So pretty much ignoring this altogether. The other variation was a knight to h5, aims to break that apart, I guess. The castle variation allows for the pawns to march up and try to create weaknesses on the queen side, which basically is a minority attack. You have 4 black pawns here, and you have these 2, well, 3, but 2 versus 3. And yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right. They have a lot more lines here, but I'm not going to go over them. There's like about 5 different lines, which is a lot to do. So that covers knight to f. Oops, that covers knight to f. I don't know what I did. Hopefully I didn't mess anything up. I'm going to go back and watch that. I don't know what I did. Go back and watch it and pause it. All right. So knight to f3 now. The cattle line. So after everything that we've discussed with the knight to c3, now knight to f3, which is surprisingly going to change lots of things. But we're pretty much almost done with the first part of the video. So it's not going to be as much because I'm pretty sure a lot of stuff transposes. They also said that it's not bad to play the immediately g3 because you're going to be doing this anyways. So the cattle line. And after knight to f6, apparently this is considered the only accurate move for some reason. That's what it says. There's like different ways to get here. There's d4, knight to f6, c4, e6, g3, d5, knight to f3. So I guess there's different ways to get here, but I'm not going to get into all that. I mean, you can obviously know that like if they don't play d5 right away and they play knight to f, you can go here. Like the order can be very different, but it's the same thing, you know? So after f6, g3, and d takes c4. This is the open cattle. There's apparently a close as well, but this is the open. White can play queen a4 check to win back the pawn. I mean, if he defends it either way, you can just take the pawn back. Even knight here as well. You can just, I'll just show it. Like let's pretend he defends. You can just win the pawn back. So it's not a big deal. The most common move here is knight to bishop to g2. It is possible for black to play b5 here. But like before, you can just play a4. And there's not much you can do. I mean, if he takes it, then he just loses that back. I mean, it doesn't even look that good either. I don't even know what white black would be doing. I mean, you can literally move your knight in and attack the rook. So it makes sense of why he doesn't block, because it just really opens up a nasty attack. No one's ever played it. And oh, I put a4 then that. But knight to e5. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's possible to play this. It's optional, but it's very deadly. So like if you're, I say early on, you're more of a beginner type, you can actually just play a4 if you wanted. And after he takes, he's not gonna. I mean, he's not gonna want to take. But if he takes, you can try to mess up his structure somehow, and just call check shortly after, and a lot of weird stuff. But all right. Besides b5, he can play h6, which is also preparing for b5. Knight to c6 is possible here. C5, like before, the same structure. Like I said, a lot of these things have common moves, common themes. Very important to remember the patterns. If you remember the patterns, you don't have to remember every single book move. So patterns, like the purpose of going through all this is to like look at the patterns, look at the patterns. All right, so yeah, that's pretty much it for this part right here. After g3, he can't play bishop to e7 and bishop to g2. Castles, castles. And basically black faces the same choice again. If he decides to capture here, it's pretty much very similar. He also has c5 here, which is also very similar. We've seen all this before. So black has some ideas here. So c5 is considered more of a closed Catalan. I mean, Tarot, I'm sorry. c5 transposes usually into the Tarot, which we went over already. Knight b to d7 is a Catalan. You also can have more of a closed structure with c6 as well. So it depends if you want closed or not. That's pretty much, that's basically it for the first segment of this. If you like it, let me know. You can share it. If you guys are happy with like going over the different lines and different move orders and looking at the patterns, which is I think the most important part of it is looking at the patterns. And yeah, hopefully if you enjoy it, you can look at a specific variation. All the variations are put here. You can see it. So any variation that you want to look more into, you can actually look into it more. The next one will be Slav and semi-Slav. So that's the next segment. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, like, subscribe, share my videos, donate. Oh, hey. Oh, sorry about that. I didn't realize I was getting messages from Twitch. How you doing? Becky Benson. All right. All right. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed. And like I said, I'm going to be the next one I'm going to be working on is a Slav and semi-Slav variations, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions, you can go on YouTube and put a comment in the comment section, and I'll get back to you guys. Yeah, just look. It's the same title, I believe. I put the same title on for YouTube as I did for Twitch, just about. So, all right. Yeah, like, subscribe, share, and donate. Thank you for your time. Oh, I thought I closed it.